Today's video, I want to start off with a question. How do you guys feel about the strategist role in season 9.5? There's a lot that's happened within the support role since season 0. A lot of changes, a lot of gameplay updates, buffs, nerfs, additions to the class, a little bit more variety here and there. But more specifically, to follow up on that question, how you guys feel about Ultron, just in general? Remember when he first came out, he was real strong for the most part, had a lot of upside, and they kind of nerfed him into the ground, nerfed his ultimate, and they kind of continually nerfed his ultimate, added a little change to the area effect of how his ultimate kind of operates just a little bit, gave him a nice little thing, but ultimately Ultron still stands in this weird PR perception of the community. On one hand, if you really understand and lean into Ultron's identity, you can absolutely dominate the enemy team and be a complete nuisance. On the other hand, if you have someone that has 2 left feet for hands and they're trying to play Ultron, it turns into the most annoying thing on the planet. So what I want to discuss today, I want to break down why people can't stand Ultron. Is he a good support to actually use in season 9.5 post, the team up, changes that they made to the game in season 9? And I just want to know your thoughts down below. Is he viable? Is he good? Should you use him? What kind of comps should you use him in? Why do people hate him when you pick him in ranked? I've been on record multiple videos saying that if Ultron wasn't so hated, if people didn't sit there and lose their freaking mind in ranked whenever I decided to pick Ultron, he would probably be my main support. I really enjoy, he has a simple gameplay loop. It's not complicated. You point, you click, you shoot. I like his playstyle. And whenever I do play Ultron, I don't got to worry about dive too much, okay? Because I'm flying up in the air. I can peel for my teammates a little bit easier, especially since with the new team up ability that he has with Penny Parker and everything, makes it a little bit easier for you to kind of peel for your teammates, keep everybody alive, have a lot of uptime, very offensive and defensive ult. You can kind of shift it so it gives you that fluidity with however you want to operate. And that's how I like playing support. On the other hand, though, you have a lot of people that just don't know how to play the game fundamentally, and it turns into a crackhead fest. So here's the thing. Why do people hate Ultron? Maybe you're someone that's trying to learn the character. You go into rank. People are, pissed off that you're using Ultron. Why don't you use somebody else? Well, here's the thing. There's a slight misconception, okay? Some of y'all probably thought I was going to be crashing on Ultron players, but I'm really not. Some of y'all do suck on Ultron. Don't get me wrong. There's times where you just need to hop off the character. Don't get me wrong. They be running, enemy team running triple DPS with 3 hit scans. You might want to get off the character. But look, there's a slight misconception with Ultron that his healing isn't good. Now, we've talked about the different nuances, within this game. There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of burst damage specifically in this game. But to kind of offset all the damage output, you have to have characters that can sit there and do a lot of burst healing and have a lot of healing output to kind of sit there and balance it out. You can't have high damage and low healing. But at the same time, you can't have a lot of overwhelming burst healing without having characters that can do a lot of burst damage. So they kind of exist in this little limbo with each other, and it kind of comes down to who has to reload first. The support has to reload, so boom, they do a burst damage move and boom, you're dead. But then the DPS has someone one shot, but they gotta reload, boom, Luna Snow freaking sits there and heals somebody all the way up to 1,000 HP in the span of a half second. That's how it be. No one plays cover. People just naturally don't play cover in this game because of all the burst healing that you're able to get. So why play cover if you can just stand out in the open and just get rewarded for it, which is going to allow your teammates to sit there and charge their ultimates faster. Yes, I know they did reduce the ult charges, but still, it's still a thing. It's a lot of burst healing. People don't play cover. So with that context in mind, why is Ultron in this funky spot? Well, his character is not inherently a burst healing character. I talked about the different archetypes of supports that you have in this game. You have, your burst healers, you have your utility healers. Your burst healers, that's going to be your characters like Luna, like Invis, that can really sit there and take somebody that's at critical health. You can sit there, boost them all the way back up to 50 HP, 100 HP very quickly, do a lot of damage. But then you got characters that, they don't necessarily burst heal, right? You have your characters like, like Rocket, they have like, a lot of AoE healing. You have your characters like Mantis that have a lot of utility. Your characters like, Adam Warlock has a lot of utility, affects the game a little bit more than just exclusively healing. And then you got my boy Ultron, who kind of fits into that utility style of a strategist. Doesn't necessarily have a high burst healing output, but if played correctly, he can have a lot of healing and just a lot of impact on the game. Why people don't like him is the simple fact that he just doesn't do burst healing. Point blank simple. A lot of people stand out in the open. They want to get burst healed. They have an Ultron on their team and boom. Sometimes, I'm a crackhead. I be playing out in the open. I'm like, dang, I got Ultron. I got to remind myself. I'm like, yo, that's not an invis back there. You got to calm down on how you pushing. Sometimes I got to remind myself. I'm like, look, I got to play around what kind of team comp I got. I can't sit there and be like, yo, get off Ultron. Now, unless the Ultron's like dying a billion times, that's one thing. But at the same time, if they're sucking that bad on Ultron, I don't think them swapping the cloak and dagger is going to really improve my situation. It's more than likely going to be a GG go next. Unless, they just, what I'm saying, they're just like the best freaking cloak and dagger player or whatever character that they freaking swap to. But like I said, I digress. When it comes to Ultron, people in this game don't really have adaptability. Now, what I mean by that, if that's too big of a word, just being able to adapt to, or let me not use the word adapt in my definition, but not being able to adjust to having different, team comps. Sometimes maybe you're really good on a character. I like playing Magneto. I love playing Angela. I can be giving a lot of value. But if the chemistry doesn't mesh well with the team that I have, it's not really gonna work out. If my play style doesn't mesh well, I need to adjust somewhere. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. If the team doesn't benefit from it, it doesn't really matter. Okay, you gotta remember that you got 5 other teammates that you gotta play along with. So just keep that in mind. It's the same thing in basketball. You could be the best scorer on the team, get all your points, but you're still you could score 30 and still lose by 30 because you're not passing your teammates the ball, giving them open looks, getting them in rhythm and everything, running plays so they can get easy buckets. It's the same thing in Marvel Rivals. If you're not running the right type of comp, if you're not running the right kind of character, if you're not running the right kind of play style, it's not going to work. And a lot of people in this game are not going to want to adjust their play style to an Ultron that's on their team, especially if it's in a double support lineup. Now, I think Ultron, in my personal opinion, I think he thrives a little bit better in a triple support comp, just because of how aggressive damage is. Now, everything's contextual because sometimes if you're on Ultron and the enemy team just isn't that good, yes, you can get away with it. If your DPS are doing their job, your tanks are doing their job, and Ultron is essentially just uncontested, then yes, you're going to steamroll the enemy team. But the other team, in a situation where you guys are both teams really want to win and they're going to be counter picking, they're not going to just sit there and just let a double support Ultron just hang out in the back and just be uncontested the whole time. That's just not going to happen. Now Ultron, they're going to swap to a hit skin. They're going to swap to a character. He's going to get pressured and it's going to be a little bit different. Problem is, most people aren't really going to sit there to try to naturally counter stuff. That adjustment on the enemy team, people just refuse to adjust. People on your team refuse to actually adjust to the play style that they have with their backline. They want to stand out in the open, take all kinds of damage. That's not how that works. Ultron operates with uptime. The more he's up, the more value that you're going to get. Him having his drones out, he's able to heal multiple people while also being a pseudo DPS that he could sit there, target the backline, poke the tank, poke other DPSs. He's great with peel. He's great with anti-dive. You have a Black Panther. He could fly up, throw the drone on his other support, beam down the Panther. Depending on which team up you have, if you're using the Iron Man team up, you can use his beam. That could be a really, good nuisance. I know it's not the best thing in the world, but still, it's pretty good, even if you're targeting someone directly. enemy directly, it does do some pretty decent damage, especially if they're, separated from, their healers, and they don't have like, a mantis, like, healing over time, or an Ultron drone on themselves. It does give a lot of value. So just understand that aspect. But Ultron has a lot of value, but it's just a lot of misconceptions around the character that his healing isn't good. His healing is fine. I don't think Ultron really needs a burst heal ability. My personal thing with Ultron, I just think he just needs a slight, not saying that he needs more mobility, but basically what they did with Human Torch kind of give Ultron something similar to that, where his movement is a little bit more fluid. You know what I'm saying? Maybe give him like an extra burst, adjust the way the cooldown works on his movement, kind of, because that's why I like what they did with Human Torch with his movement. And I think they can do something similar to Ultron. And I think that will really take him up to like the next level when it comes to his effectiveness. Not saying that they need to, but if they were to do something, if they're not going to sit there and reduce his ult charge or give him more damage, definitely give him some more mobility. He's a flyer. He feels kind of stale midair when everything's on cooldown. Allow his mobility kind of feel a little bit more fluid. Had that little gameplay loop, and I'll appreciate that a little bit more. That's just me, though. I could be wrong. The other thing, let's move on to our next part. I know we've been yapping, but if y'all been watching me, y'all already know we do a lot of yapping here. Matter of fact, we're kind of at the middle part of the video here. Let's take a brief intermission. How y'all doing? How y'all doing, man? For those of you who don't know, I recently started a brand new job. I work in the medical field and everything, so my schedule got shifted. I used to upload and stream like, almost every single day, but due to my current, obligations and stuff like that, I kind of had to fix my sleep schedule. It's like, I can be, a little bit more attentive to like the stuff that I do now and everything. And it's great. It's a great thing. But, currently just trying to work back into like, really getting like, uploads, getting the content out to you guys, getting the talking points, getting the commentary pieces out there, because, the reason why I started this channel, for those who don't know, I really like Marvel Rivals. I really enjoy hero shooters. I enjoy games like this. I came from playing, FPS games also, but, I came from playing Destiny, but I also played games like Smite. I played Overwatch before. I played other, hero shooters, similar to like, this genre where we have, different classes and different characters have different weapons and everything. So I've been around town, with it, and I'm a big, comic book reader. I'm big into like, the Marvel movies and, DC also. But I enjoy the books. I enjoy the, the Marvel lore behind these characters. So this game is just something that, I really appreciate. They're adding characters that, we have a company that actually listens. It's just the community is just a little weird. And what I don't want to happen in a game that, I really do enjoy playing, maybe I don't play it, as much as I used to, like, a couple months ago due to my job schedule change, but I still enjoy playing the game. I want people to be able to come to this community, have a good time. I want the devs to, to be able to listen to the feedback. I want to have that open communication. I want people to have a space where they can come, voice their grievances, hey, we need this, but also not to have to worry about because, oh, I'm not a pro player. Oh, I don't play ranked. I only play QP, so my voice doesn't matter. Here, all perspectives matter. All viewpoints matter. I just want everybody to understand that going forward, because the only way we can make this game better is to talk about certain things within the community, within the game, within the, the devs, what they do, so we can sit there, come together, and actually have like, good decisions made going forward. Because I came from Destiny 2, where the devs sat there and management sat there and just said, yeah, screw y'all, basically. They promised this, and they gave us dumpster juice. And NetEase actually cares. It's just we got a bunch of crackheads in this community. So I want to filter out the crackheads and actually have like a space where people care. And I care. And if you play this game, if you watch these videos, I'm pretty sure you care too. So this is why we're here. This is why I do this. And yeah. But I haven't been uploading as much. I ain't gonna lie. I've been tweaking. I ain't gonna lie. Look, I could have been uploading a little bit more. I ain't had to have as much of a drought that I have had. That's my fault. You feel me? That's genuinely my fault. But we back to it. So going forward though, is Ultron actually a viable pick? in season 9.5 of Marvel Rivals. It's kind of weird because the team up changes that they did, his current, I don't even know if can I pull it up here? Yeah. So his current team up that he has with Penny, right? He can put multiple, drones on, people all at once. And it only lasts like a couple seconds or anything. I don't think it's like a necessarily like an overpowered team up or anything like that. I think it's good. I think it's solid. The only thing for you to get the full maximum benefit out of it is to have a Penny Parker on your team. And Penny Parker is also in a weird spot because Penny's one of those characters you have to play into the gimmick of Penny. There's certain characters, and I don't mean gimmick like it's a bad thing, but there's certain characters in this game that have a specific niche to them, and you as a team have to play into it, assuming that the other team is on the same skill level, maybe a little bit better, and they're playing to win. You're not going to get away with playing certain characters. I keep telling people, if you play Penny Parker into a poke lineup, that team is going to sit there and use Penny Parker as a full-blown bullet sponge. If you play Storm, the team has to play around Storm. You can't just have a Storm and the team is not actively playing around her so they can take that pressure off her. If you just have a Storm and you guys are just, not peeling, not actively being a little bit aggressive so the enemy team can't just hard focus her, it's not going to work. Like I said, this is in scenarios where the other team isn't a bunch of idiots and you guys are just steamrolling. If you guys are steamrolling, then it doesn't really matter what anybody does. You can run 6 DPSs. It would literally just wouldn't matter. But in a vacuum, in a normal situation where the other team is not going to let you slide with having a certain gimmick of a character, you got to play into it. And it's the same thing with Ultron. He is viable. He has a solid kit, but the team has to play into it. When the team plays into an Ultron, where they're not being overly aggressive, taking too much damage, we're not being stupid trying to sit there and face tank a Punisher freaking turret, like they have like an invis behind them or something like that can burst heal like crazy, then Ultron really operates very well. Even if it is a double support comp, if you have a competent Ultron player that's hitting shots, that's applying pressure to like the right people at the right time, popping his ult. Like I said, Ultron, he has a very fluid active ult. Luna, for example, her ult for the most part can be seen as defensive. I guess you can pop Luna ult and push in technically, but Luna herself doesn't do damage with her ultimate, technically speaking. I know she has like the little damage booster, but her dancing in her ultimate doesn't necessarily do damage. Ultron has an ultimate that can do damage. You can get a lot of picks with it, but it also can be very defensive. So having that fluidity, I think adds a little bit more value and a little bit more playmaking potential to that character. And that's why I love the off supports, the utility support class, because characters like, Adam Warlock, even though I kind of be cracking jokes at you Adam Warlock players, but characters like Mantis, for example, she can damage boost, and now she has like the little speed boost that she can do now, the healing over time. Characters like White Fox that can get into the thick of it with their dive DPS, with their dive tanks, and can really sit there and really defend herself very well against Daredevils and BPs and everything else. I like those characters because it allows you to have a more, there's more you can do, but sometimes people just need a simple character like a Rocket, somebody like a Cloak and Dagger, you know what I'm saying? What's the other supports that are really straightforward that I can throw in here? A character like I guess you could throw Jeff the Landshark in there just a little bit. He's a pretty straightforward character, but he does have a lot of playmaking potential also. But you need characters like Rocket in the game that are simple and straightforward. You need the characters like Cloak and Dagger that are simple and straightforward in the game, that have those kits that you can pick up and you can just sit there and play a certain way, still do your job and still get value. But I like to have those characters that, in a pinch, I can make a play and I can sit there and swing the whole match. That's what I like about Ultron. But the community perspective on him, it's not really that great. Your teammates are going to hate you if you sit there and pick Ultron. It just is what it is. Is it justified? Meh, it depends. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people just overly hate, non-burst healers. Yeah, because you got a bunch of idiots in the community that can't play cover. It just is what it is. But also at the same time, I think there's a time and place where Ultron may not be the play, and sometimes you just gotta swap. So you just gotta understand that. So is he viable? Yes. Definitely viable. Can you use him in season 9.5? Yes, depending on the comp and who you're playing against and how aggressive the enemy team is and a whole bunch of other things. But Ultron definitely gets a lot of hate. Is it super justified? Some people can kind of lay off on him, but I think Ultron is like one mobility buff or like mobility adjustment away from being a very, and I mean a very consistent pick within some of your Marvel Rivals matches. Let me know what you guys think down below, how you guys feel about Ultron, and I'll see you guys in the next video, man.